will send it to you, but I also put it onto the Advancing Awareness site. That's where it will go. Okay.
Right.
Thank you all for joining us this evening, and particularly to Wissam. Thank you. Wissam is an experienced therapist and trainer with nearly 2 decades of experience guiding people through profound inner healing. He specializes in regression therapy, both past life and current life, hypnotherapy, and between lives spiritual regression, helping individuals gently explore the deeper layers of their consciousness to find peace, understanding, and emotional release. As a trainer with the Past Life Regression Academy, Wissam teaches both hypnotherapy and regression therapy. His work is grounded in compassion and the belief that healing happens when we reconnect with the soul's wisdom and release the pain carried within the body and mind. Sorry, I'll just let 2 people in. Wissam has worked with people from all walks of life, supporting them to free themselves from emotional blocks, find meaning in their experiences. His approach integrates body-based techniques with trance work to help resolve with words alone cannot reach. Wissam maintains a private practice in Bath and sees clients online and in person. He continues to run trainings and supports his students' journey of shedding layers of resolved past and current life challenges while they learn the tools to help themselves. There's 2 more people waiting. Sorry, I'll just let these in. Wissam, thank you for joining us this evening. I've got a lot of questions here for you, and if you don't mind, there'll be questions and obviously answers from yourself towards the end. My first,
Absolutely.
thank you. My first question to you is, how do you heal someone who's had terrible trauma in a previous life?
Um, I think first of all, I don't heal anyone.
Ah,
All I do is guide them into various places. And if someone has past life trauma, for example, or current life trauma for that sake, often by going and visiting that time when it happened, when we go through trauma, what happens is often it's too much for us to deal with. So what we'll do is shut down and only allow in what we're able to deal with. And I'm sure, many of you have experienced that. So what happens when we shut that down is it gets stored somewhere. So then all of a sudden, we're walking around again, but suddenly we're carrying a bit more baggage. Life feels a little bit harder.
hmm.
And of course, that can get triggered over and over again, as we go through life. So one of the ways to enable this energy to move, because it's literally pockets of energy we're carrying around, is by, if you go back and go through the experience again, the body and the psyche can start to release that trapped energy. And there are certain techniques we do to find forgiveness in situations or understanding in situations, or if the trauma was, let's say, physical abuse, sexual abuse, or quite a traumatic thing. Especially with sexual abuse, say, what happens is the trauma gets stuck in the body, and we actually need to use the body to release the trauma. We can't just talk it; we actually have to move the body to unlock what was locked. So there's a number of tools to use depending on what the client is presenting with. But if we go into past lives, then in some ways it makes it much easier to clear because in a way it's disassociated. If I'm wanting to, for example, forgive my past life father who might have been abusive, it's kind of a little bit easier than forgiving my current life father, where I have, 50 plus years with, and, I'm carrying a lot of energy because it's in the current life.
Hmm.
But the interesting thing about whether we work with current or past life is that patterns tend to repeat themselves. So whether it's past life patterns coming up into the current life again, whether it's patterns of emotional patterns, or even ancestral patterns repeat themselves too. So, so yeah, it's just working with where the psyche takes us ultimately. Because all I do is take someone into a relaxation. You can call that hypnosis, you can call that trance. I don't always like to use the word hypnosis or trance because it sounds like this fancy thing. And all it really is just a state of relaxation. So when we relax, we can tune into these parts of us that are hidden from us in our normal conscious awareness, if you like. In the same way where, let's say you're showering. I don't know if anyone has experienced this. I know I have. You know, sometimes when I'm showering, I take my mind away from everything. I'm just relaxing. The water's lovely and warm. And suddenly I have an idea. You know, it's a similar thing. Just by going into that state of kind of relaxation, ideas, thoughts, and solutions can just arise.
Is forgiveness important and does it have an impact on future incarnations?
Forgiveness is very, very important. When during the trainings, we spend a lot of time learning all the different tools and techniques for forgiveness. Now, the interesting thing about forgiveness is you can't just forgive. You can't just say, right, I forgive. Forgiveness happens when certain criteria is met. So the first criteria that needs to be met, and not necessarily in this order, but it can be helpful. The first criteria is to release the excess energy. So for example, using the father analogy, if I had a father that, you know, I had a challenge with, if I'm holding lots of anger towards him, then it's going to be extremely difficult, almost impossible to fully forgive him. You know, I can forgive him in the mind. Oh, yes, I get it. I understand. But there's a part in us that's kind of still holding on to all this anger. So when we're talking about deep forgiveness, you need to go through an aspect of releasing the energetic charge that there is. Sometimes that's anger. Sometimes it's guilt, shame, sadness, whatever that is. Once that's released, the next part that enables forgiveness to just unfold is some perspective. Because often, if we've been wronged, especially as a child, we see the world from the child perspective, i.e., it's all about me. You know, if my dad does something wrong, you know, something's wrong with me, etc. So once we can go back with the adult perspective, that can also shift. But my work also very much plugs into the soul, the aspect of us that's beyond just the human. And when you start to access the soul's wisdom, also when people are in that state of trance, you can quite readily plug them into what some people call guides or angels or beings of light, or just a level of awareness that's often just beyond our conscious awareness. We can all tune into this. Some people like to call it just my higher self, or my subconscious mind has the answers. You know, whatever your belief systems are around that, you know, whatever people's belief system, we can access a state of consciousness that has more answers than one that we plug into on a daily basis, in our normal waking consciousness, should I say. So once we bring in, so we release so the way healing happens is, which is including of forgiveness, is you release the energy, you get understanding, and you can also bring in the spiritual dimension or the higher dimension. You know, what was I supposed to learn from this experience? And ultimately, the higher up you go, when we plug into the soul consciousness with these big events, often the soul of, let's say, the soul of Wissam, it wouldn't be my human perspective, because from my human, it's like, there's no way I want to experience this. There's no way I want my father to do these things to me. But from the soul perspective, when we go higher up, often there's an agreement between my soul and my father's soul to give me this experience in order for me to learn something, to be more compassionate, or to learn to forgive, or whatever that thing is. Because once I've learned that, it's almost like that signature is gets kind of stamped, if you like, on my soul, and suddenly I become a more compassionate person, or a more, wise, or whatever it is that you was, that ultimately that was supposed to give you.
Mm.
So that was a long-winded answer.
No, it's brilliant. But how do we release that energy, Wissam? Is that something you help us
Yeah,
do?
absolutely, absolutely. And there's many ways to do it. But ultimately, one of the ways is, no one ever, we're taught in our society that when emotions come up, push them down, run away from them. If you notice, when emotions come up, automatically the body will tighten.
Mm.
Sometimes you'll notice the jaw tightens, the stomach tightens. These are all unconscious ways that we try to lock that energy in, keep it held down, and, for it to kind of stay there. So we do the opposite of that. We allow the emotions to come through, because, I mean, in its most basic form, if you have a good cry,
Mm.
you generally feel better afterwards.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, but no one necessarily wants to go to start doing the crying. We try to kind of avoid that. So it's a little bit like that.
Yeah. It wasn't allowed when I was a little girl. Um, what if the client doesn't believe in reincarnation?
Great question. So this is the wonderful thing, because normally when people come to see me, I mean, sometimes I have, um, you know, very sort of hardcore, I like to call them, hardcore Christians that absolutely don't believe in reincarnation. They're coming to me for hypnosis, or for inner child work. And I'll say to the subconscious, okay, let's go to the source of this. And then they may go to what we can call a past life. Now, there's three main beliefs around what these past lives are. One is, it is a past life. You're tuning into um, a life you've had as a soul before you were in this body. Yeah. So if you believe in past lives, your soul was, before it was in this body, it was in other lives which are past. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's one belief. Another belief is that you're not actually tuning into your past life. You're tuning into what some people refer to as the Akashic records, or the collective experience that Young named the collective experience. So we're tuning into what happened on Earth, but it wasn't necessarily my past life. And then the third explanation is the mind creates a story for the healing to take place. Now, whichever one of those beliefs resonate for you most, I say go with that and run with that. Because it's not, I'm not about changing people's beliefs, but what I am about is bringing healing. And even if someone believes the mind just created this metaphor, if you like, for the healing to take place, then that's fine. I'm interested in the healing taking place. So
Mm.
whatever way that you want to think about it, if I'm working with a client, for the healing, for them to put it into some kind of meaning for themselves, that's absolutely up to them.
Mm.
So, but what we do know is people can tune into these memories, or if you want to believe, the mind makes it up, and really profound healing takes place when we do.
Have you actually had somebody come to you for some therapy and they've discovered they've got previous lives and yet they didn't believe in reincarnation? Has that happened?
Absolutely, yeah. As I said, many Christians, have come.
Yeah.
And, not necessarily that I would have known that they were or weren't Christians, but, many people are atheists even. They just want to, heal this sadness that they've been
Mm,
carrying around, or this, anger or guilt or whatever. So, for me, all I'm interested in, because when I instruct the subconscious mind to take me back to the source of it, what it can look like in a therapy session is, someone comes, let's say we're dealing with sadness, and I'll say, okay, let's go to the source of it. And a memory will come up whereby, oh, I'm 18 and my first love leaves me. I feel really sad. Now, probably all of us will remember these sorts of memories of being a little bit older. But then I'll say, okay, take that sadness, but let's go back to the source of it, to when it was you first felt it. So people can jump back to 7, and let's say mum shouts at me, it wasn't my fault, it was my sister's fault, and she's blaming me, I feel really sad. Okay, go to the source. The source event in the current life is often in the first 2 or 3 years in life.
mm,
If you think about a child, by the time they're 2 or 3, they've experienced anger,
mm,
sadness,
mm,
all sorts of different emotions.
mm,
But sometimes they'll go back even further to being in the womb, and it's very common.
mm.
And they can be in the womb, and one of the most common ones I hear is mum and dad, mum's pregnant with me, so I'm in mum's belly. Mum and dad are having a big argument,
Oh, they are
and
aware of it, are they? When they're in?
oh, absolutely aware of all
Oh,
of
gosh, yes.
mum and dad are having a big argument. Mum thinks, I wish I wasn't pregnant, otherwise I would leave him.
Ah,
Baby's like, oh, I'm not wanted.
yeah.
Bang. And that's where it can start.
Oh,
So, these things, the baby has consciousness and it has awareness. And
mm,
the baby isn't just limited to being inside the belly. The baby can actually see often the scenario around as well.
mm. Would it have that level of understanding? Would it be conscious of what they're verbalizing?
It would be conscious of the energetic imprint in
Yeah.
that moment when mum says, I wish I wasn't pregnant.
Yes.
It will feel that.
Yes, the feeling. Yes. Wow. With humans who reincarnate, obviously that you've regressed, have you discovered that we experience every nationality, every continent and religion on earth? We have to do the rounds.
um, I can't tell you I know that definitively
Mm,
because I've not regressed one person enough times to find out if that's true.
yes.
However, we have all been perpetrators.
Yeah.
We've all been the victims. We learn from both sides,
Mm,
but it gets a bit more complex than that. When you look at the between lives work, whereby you take someone into deeper states of hypnosis and you access their what we call the between lives memory. So let's say my soul is in this body known as Wissam.
mm,
Well, before it, if you think before it was in this body, let's say it was in another body. Well, where was it between the bodies? Well, it was in this place we can call heaven, or I like to call the spirit realms,
mm.
because, to take religion out of it, this place that souls go to. And in that place, um, when we access these deep states of hypnosis, we can go up there and we can start to find out what are the contracts that different souls made, why we're coming, what we want to learn, etc., etc. So we can start to get some high level information. So from those places, Andy Tomlinson, for example, has done some research and published a book where he took 10 of the best regression hypnosis subjects and he took them to this place and got them to tune into their guide and ask them all a series of the same questions and just getting, very, very similar results. So,
Oh,
we can,
fascinating.
it's really is fascinating.
Mm. Well, that brings me to my next question because attempting to heal can bring a deep sense of clarity to the present. But what if, say, an alcoholic addiction, that's what they signed up for? How do you deal with something like that? As you were saying earlier, there's a contract made before you're born. And if they have to come here and they are going through some trauma, but they come to you, they can't get over that trauma because that's what they're here to do. They've got to be that personality.
Yes, so it's not quite like that. It's a little bit more like if I have trauma, um, I came here to have the trauma.
Hmm.
Yeah. I didn't on a human level choose that my father or my mother or my uncle or someone did whatever they did to me, let's just say, right? That I didn't choose. However, there's often choice points as you go through life.
Mm.
Now, and if someone's already come to me, they've made they wouldn't even think to come and find someone like me if they weren't ready to start healing. Yeah. If it wasn't in their path, let's say, to fully heal. But ultimately, we're all coming here to play roles for ourselves and other people, and ultimately to heal, to find wisdom.
Mm.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we're all, I mean, I like to think that perhaps we're doing with our children a slightly better than our parents did with us. And, our children's children will do slightly better
Through
than what we did.
generations.
Exactly. So, if we're kind of, unless some big trauma pops in somewhere, then generally the path is of one of healing and consciousness.
That makes sense. What's the common denominator with the majority of people who recall transitioning? For
Recall.
example, well, native Indians would say, American Indians, they would say that when they pass, they go off in a canoe.
Mhm.
We would see light.
Yeah.
What's the common denominator
The
that
common denominator is the belief system.
back to the belief.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So because once we leave our body, whatever comforts us is what's going to come.
Yes.
So if I am really close with my father, let's say, and I really miss him and he has passed, when I pass, he may come, for example, and help me transition in that way.
Mm.
If I believe in um, Jesus, for example, maybe he might come. Or if I believe in Buddha, maybe he might come. Or if I have a guru, perhaps my guru will come. These are just um, energies we're putting a name to.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's really what we're comfortable with. And that's what we get presented. If I believe I've been terrible and I'm going to go to hell, then, there's a chance that I'm going to manifest something a bit scary because that's my belief system. But once that finishes playing out, like, that's once I'm tired of creating that, let's say, there's always going to be a way out of that.
Mm. Without obviously naming the person, what has been your most interesting regression? I'm sure there's been many.
God, which one to choose? Interesting. In what direction?
Well, you choose that one.
um, One I really liked because it didn't just affect the person, it affected the family around them. I had a lady who came to me. It was around October time. This is a good 10 years ago now. And she said, Wissam, I've come to see you because every Christmas the family get together and I've got my older sister and she's always hated me. Ever since we were kids, I've always wanted, for her to like me and, she's always hated me. And last year we got into a big row and, it really ruined Christmas for everyone. So I really want to work on whatever it is inside of me that I can clear So if something happens, I can stay calm, or, I won't get into that situation again. So she went to a past life where it was in the Roman times, where she was a Roman soldier, and she was tasked with going and collecting babies of a certain age and killing them. And she remembers going to this particular woman and ripping the baby out from her arms. And she just mentioned staring into her eyes, and she was really struck by the level of uh, pain in her eyes. And then she jumped to a next past life where she was a woman in a clay hut with 5 children, and there was a traveler. And in those times, you have plenty of food, you'd invite them in, be hospitable. And she said as soon as she invited this man in, she felt something was wrong. And this traveler ended up killing her and her children. And you can guess it, this traveler was this woman from the past life, who is her older sister. Mm. And then she went to another series of 2 or 3 lives where she encountered her sister, and her sister kept killing her. So it was almost like from that first past life, the sister hadn't let go of what had happened, and the energy was still, playing itself out. So obviously now they're born together as sisters, and there's, luckily she's not killing her anymore, so it's improving. But, there's all this energy between them. So we went and we did the healing. She sent me an email after the New Year. She said, Wissam, you'll never believe this. She said, it's like I have a sister that I've never had before. She said, my sister's never asked me, what do I do? What's my job? She's never asked me. She's never been interested in anything. Suddenly we're there, and it's like, hey, so, she started asking me all these questions. We got on well. It's almost like, we now want to see each other again. It's like we have a relationship for the first time. Mm. And she was so grateful and happy. And all we did was just cleared up. You can call it the karma, but cleared up this energy between them, this past energy, and it just balances, so it's almost like a clean slate. So that was a really interesting life, that because, it affected her sister, and it can often, in the trainings we have, so often, we do a demo on one of the students. And then all the students go in groups of 2 or 3 and practice what we've just shown them to practice. And it's so common for someone to be a demo. We work with them on a particular theme. Let's say it involves a parent or some, an ex-partner or whoever they've still got energy around. Mm. And that person, hasn't been in contact with them for 10 years, and suddenly they get a missed call from them while they're in the session. Mm. It's so common, because it's almost like once that energy shifts, it's almost like, oh, I wonder how they're doing. Oh, maybe I'll reach out to them. It's like there's nothing in the way anymore. Mm. So this is, it's a bit like magic, but it's true. It really happens like that. I mean, Sheila, who's here, has been on the training. So it's lovely to see you, Sheila. And I'm sure, she can tell you some stories. But it's it's really profound, the ripples effect of this kind of work.
I see there's questions from where they've gone to now. There's questions from Kathy. Kathy, would you like to go ahead and ask your questions? You're muted, by the way.
Thank you. Hi, Wissam.
Hi, Kathy.
I was curious about something. For those people that would see tandem concurrent lifetimes as our experience, is the only thing that would discern past life just the concept of past and future?
Yeah,
I'm just curious about how you navigate this.
We call them past lives.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to.
Because
historically, it's in before 2025, let's say. But more in reality, it's more complex than that. All the lives are happening at the same time, all at once. which is
Okay.
why we can actually kind of tune into them right now,
Yes.
change them, heal them, and then the healing happens here and now immediately.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, that's where it gets a little bit more nuanced.
Thank you, because it's just from my own experience, it's a tap in with certain things that happens. I'm very
Yeah,
aware of it and I can't explain it and I don't need to understand,
yeah,
but it happens. So I was
yes.
kind of curious if that's what's really happening and we quiet enough to not fully understand but experience.
Mm.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, some people get bleed throughs,
Yeah.
like information coming through from one to the other. I mean, some people will say deja vus are one of these bleed throughs, when we get somewhere and, some people experience arriving somewhere they've never been in their current life and just knowing things about the place.
Mm-hmm.
And, that could be like a bleed through, if you like, from these past experiences.
Okay.
It could also be ancestral information coming down, but it can often be a bleed through. Um, so yeah, absolutely.
I ask because I get medical information that's so pertinent and I'm very aware and it's I know like I know like I know
Mhm.
and I'm still trying to understand it. It's not going to drive me crazy, but I just find it really intriguing that when I need it, it's always there.
So is this tuning into other people and finding out medical information
No,
about them? Or what
it's
what kind of?
both. It's both. It's
Yeah,
both. It's
yeah.
yeah. So that's why I was trying to understand how the nuances of that.
Yeah, that's not necessarily a past life bleed through.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be more, it could be a number of different things. So you could either be given the information by, let's say, the person's higher self or guides, if they want them to know this information and you're open. See, people who start opening can start to receive. It's almost like when communication wants to happen, they're like, "Oh, look,
Yeah.
there's Kathy. She can give them the information."
Yeah. Yeah.
So suddenly you can start receiving this information, and you hear the stories of psychics, proper psychics, not the charlatans and people like that, and they tell the story. Suddenly they're open, and then all sorts of people want to give them messages for the living, if you like. So yeah, yeah,
Interesting. Thank you. I appreciate that. This is very interesting to me.
yeah. Very welcome. Welcome. Great
Alan,
question. Thank you.
Alan, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm with Sam. Yeah, just following on from what Kathy was saying, really. Um, if I decide to come back after this life and come back to another life, would it have to be in the future or could it be a life in the past?
Either or.
Oh, right. Okay.
Either or. I mean, there's some modalities they teach future life progression,
Right. Hmm.
and we can only do the past and future really because we can literally plug into consciousness.
Hmm.
So it doesn't have to be in linear order.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Thanks very
Oh,
much. Yes.
that's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the rabbit hole gets bigger and bigger. The more I understand about this, the more I realize I have no idea.
Have you been regressed yourself?
Oh, hundreds of times.
Have you? Gosh.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I did the training, it's a year-long training, the actual regression training itself. Um, when I did it, I loved it so much. I went back for 3 years in a row as a student
Hmm.
because, each time I went through it, I cleared so many layers of my own unresolved stuff. Plus, I learnt much deeper because, the first time you go to a training, you learn kind of the big picture. When you go back again, now you can get all the nuances and
Hmm.
all the kind of details. So yeah, I did that, and then I attended it another 2 times as sort of trainee trainer for another couple of years, until I was kind of ready to start teaching.
Can that be done online, Wissam?
Oh yes,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
There's training. The Past Life Regression Academy run trainings both in person and online. So in person is in the UK, is in not too far away from Bath. I teach that with a colleague of mine called Tracy. And then I have Tracy and another colleague called Munna who teach online training. One is more for the Singapore time zone, and one is more for the USA time zone. So, it covers most of the world. Little bits of Australia and New Zealand that it's a little bit more challenging for. But you just have to stay up later.
Yeah, I bet. Gillian.
Hi, Wissam. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm on the phone this evening.
I can, Gillian, yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm loving your chat, and the reason I want to ask the question tonight is both Ellen, my niece who's on the chat tonight, and myself, we attended a past life regression where we come from in Ireland. And both of us went in separately with really strong intentions, like to kind of basically to have the process, but the hypnosis itself, we felt that it didn't feel like hypnosis. So, is there different, maybe, I guess what we're trying to say is, are you meant to still be completely aware of your surroundings? Or just the first chance having what we call hypnosis done or past life regression? And we both came out having the same after effect. Like, we didn't think that we were regressed. Does that kind of make sense? Or
Absolutely. It's actually one of the most common questions asked. Was I hypnotized? Did I make it up, etc., etc. When you access these lives, you don't have to be deep at all. If any of you meditate, for example, all you're actually doing is relaxing on one level at least. But sometimes when you meditate, your mind goes really super clear and sharp. Other times when you meditate, you kind of drift in and drift out, and so it's a little bit like being so you're fully aware of where you are, what you're doing, sounds, you're in full control throughout the whole process. So yes, you're supposed to be like that. Very, very few people, and there are some, but very, very few people go so deeply, immerse themselves in the experience that they almost kind of forget that they're here. But that's very, very rare. Most people will be fully aware of everything. It's almost like, so when you read a book and you're fully immersed in the book, that's a state of hypnosis. Or let's look at children, because they're, if they're watching TV and you call them, let's say, Jack, Jack, and it's almost like they don't even hear you. They're in a state of hypnosis. Their body's relaxed on the sofa and their mind is fully engaged with one thing. And that is the state of hypnosis. So you don't have to be like knocked out or disappear or anything like that. In fact, that's not the experience.
Okay, that's perfect. Well, thank you.
This might help you.
Yeah, okay.
This might help you. On my YouTube channel, I've done a recent talk, and I put it on the YouTube channel. I've only got 2 videos there, I think, but one of them, the most recent one, I guide people into a positive past life. And before I do that, I explain the process. So if you're interested, go on that, watch that, and that will I'll explain the process first, and then I'll guide the journey.
Yeah. Well, maybe if you could pass your details on to Linda's, we might come, because we have links in Bath, so we might like to come and try you.
Yeah,
just to have another
absolutely.
go at it with
Yeah,
if you're near Bath, that will be great.
sure. Yeah, I am. I'm on the edge of Bath.
Listen, I didn't realize that you had YouTube videos. Has that been recent?
Well, to be honest, it's I'm finally catching up with the century I'm in and figuring out that actually I've got to do some some videos and things. But I think one of them is quite old. But I'm going to start putting more on there. So there was a recent one this year, so I've just uploaded that, and that's just going to keep growing.
Oh,
It's going to
brilliant.
go
Would
along.
you mind sending me the link? Then I'll put it onto the
Yeah, absolutely. Or if yeah,
site.
I'm happy to send it to you. Or if you go on my website, on the at the bottom, where the footer, there's a button, a YouTube button, Facebook button, etc. If you
Oh,
just click
okay.
that, it goes straight there.
All right. I didn't even know you had your own website. I saw you on Andy's. I think is that the website you're referring to?
Oh, the Past Life Regression Academy website, you mean?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, yeah, no, I've got my own website as well, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll
Yeah.
look into that.
WissamAwad.com.
Oh, okay, brilliant. Thank you. Anyone else got any more questions? I know when we chatted, I said to you, gosh, after Andy's evening, I'm not sure what questions I've got for you. And you said, well, you can ask me what it's like to die. And I said, oh, you've had an NDE. And you said, no, of course, I've regressed all these people that have died. So what is it like to die? There's the big leading question.
Um, so it it somewhat depends on the actual death. So let's go to two extremes. One death is there I am, as a great grandparent or grandparent, and all my family are there, and
Mm,
it's time to go, and I'm going in a peaceful way. Um, and that could be quite a smooth and easy transition. Often, let's say I'll be struggling breathing or whatever is going on. And as soon as, my breath stops, as soon as my body dies, there's often this profound release. This, like, it feels like I've been restricted in a tight jacket and suddenly it's like, wow. Yeah. So it's often a beautiful and peaceful and just lovely feeling. And in that place, you can go off, you can visit, you can be multiple places at once. You can be with all your family members, know what each one's feeling, thinking, etc. Um, on the other extreme, if it's a really traumatic death, um, then often, if it's really traumatic, the person actually wants to die, if it's that bad,
mm,
or even, just being killed in a traumatic way. As soon as their heart stops beating, they're all like, what a relief. It's almost like the pain stopped.
mm,
And once that happens, the journey that someone takes when they leave their body is quite an interesting one. Now, often if it's a painful death, actually that might get a bit complex. I won't talk about that. But if it's a painful death, what can often happen is they can fragment, their energy fragments. So it's almost like they can leave some of their energy they can leave some of their energy behind, the part that's really traumatized, and they kind of go off and start going up, if you like.
mm.
Now, I say going up. Now, often many people who pass, some of them it's like, oh, I want to hang around for my funeral. I wonder who's going to come, or or actually, I'm not ready to go yet. I just want to make sure my kids are going to be okay.
Yeah.
So they can stay earthbound, if you like, and just fulfill their curiosity. Some people who have died, who've had a really important project, like they were writing a book, for them it was so important. It's like, I don't want to go, I have to finish my book. So there can be lots of different experiences, but some of the most difficult are the ones that die and they've got a lot of hatred or revenge inside them.
Mm,
And those they can choose to stay earthbound. I'm going to get them back. I'm not going to go up to the light. I'm going to get you. Or, as I said, another really
Really sorry to interrupt you there. Well, do they really have that mindset though when they just pass? Wouldn't they just be shocked that they've gone? That seems to be. I would have thought the fact that they've gone would be just a release and all of that stupidity down there. I just want to go. Do you really have people that?
it can be when they die peacefully, but often when they die in a more kind of angry, shocking way, it's almost like you know how a record can jump, the old vinyl records? It's
Yes.
almost like they're stuck in that last loop of their consciousness.
Mm.
So, when they die, sometimes they don't even realize they've left their body, especially if
Mm.
it's a very, if an explosion suddenly happens, it's almost like I came across a Roman soldier who'd been guarding this wall for 2,000 years, walking up and down. Someone came behind him, slit his throat. His body died, but the soul,
You're
was
marching
still
on. Wow.
marked for till he was found. So some souls can become earthbound. If they become earthbound, they either stay in a place, and that's what we call haunted houses,
Mm.
or they can attach to a person, especially if it's a loved one. And like my kids, I don't want to leave my kids. Who's going to look after them? They can kind of stay like that. So there's different experiences can be had when people pass. But ultimately, when they start moving from the earth plane, they go through a lightening of their energy field, i.e., they start to release all of the anger, the shame, all of the negative, heavy feelings.
Mm.
And they start to just feel so incredible, love like they've not felt, in the human form, unconditional acceptance, all the things that we hear about that we can call God, or we can call the spirit realms, this utter acceptance, love, belonging, and it's really, really beautiful, really, really beautiful. And being a therapist, sitting in that energy, you literally can feel the energy shifting in the room,
Yes.
when they go into those
Wow.
places. Yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to come back on Earth, reincarnate, they have to go home first to have a discussion about what they're going to come back as.
Yes, they do, but we're talking linear now. So we're going to talk linear because it's easier to understand linear. Ultimately, yes. When we go to those between life places I mentioned earlier, what happens generally? Now, this isn't just me saying it or the experience I've had with my clients. This is thousands and thousands of people who've had between life regression experiences, and they all repeat the same 4 or 5 core things. So when they leave their body, some kind of healing happens, their energy is lightened. Because as they go to the spirit realms, they can't go there with all the hatred and the anger and so that's all kind of cleaned off then.
Mm.
Then often they go, especially if they've had a traumatic life, even if they've had an easy death, if they've had a traumatic life, they'll often stay in a place of recovery, we can call it, or a place of healing until, they feel kind of ready to move on. It doesn't have to be in this order, but then what happens is they review their life. Now, if they're souls that have been around quite a bit, they can do this by themselves, but often the review happens with a guide, a being of light that helps them review. So I think this is where the idea of kind of judgment comes in. It's not really judgment. It's more like, oh, look, I shouted, at my son and I want to do better. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to do my best next time, not to kind of throw my anger at my son or, so it's like, where could I have done better?
Mm.
And from that place of no judgment, we're looking at these situations going, oh, I need to improve this. And, oh, yeah, I did really well here. I'm really proud of myself, So we find out where the areas of growth still are. And then we can go and start planning our next incarnation. So often we will go to what we call a council of elders. So these tend to be beings kind of, let's call it a step up from our guides. these are kind of beings that have shed even more of their stuff. So they're often depicted as, being in meeting them in, these beautiful palaces or amazing temples or something, because that's what the consciousness is putting them in, because it shows the level of it's almost like meeting the difference between meeting someone who's really wise or then meeting Jesus or Buddha. It's kind of a bit like that. So when you're with those elders, I like to call them, you say, oh, this is what I need to do and this is what I want to experience. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. And they kind of help you formulate the plan. Sometimes the souls are really gung-ho and they're like, I want to go and experience this really tough thing. And they're like, are you sure you want to do that? That sounds a bit too tough. They're like, yeah, I can do it, because they're in this place of, yeah, I can. And, the other thing that's chosen is the percentage of soul energy that soul chooses to bring into the body. The higher the soul energy, the more chance they have at achieving their goal. The elders say, I think you might want to think about taking a bit more soul energy with you. They're like, no, I can do it with 15%. You sure? I think 21% might be a better idea for this tough life you're planning, Yeah. So there's, sometimes this negotiation, you can call it, or help that's given to the souls. And it's up to them how much they choose to listen or not. They do that enough times, and trust me, they'll start listening more. So, it's all about learning, and when we come and do these lives and we go up to that place, it's almost like going on stage, acting out a play, a theater, and then the theater finishes, and then you're like, oh wow, that was fun, huh? Oh, that was painful, huh? So it's almost a bit like that. So ultimately, what happens here on Earth is important for the sake of how we're progressing, how we're growing, what we're learning. But it isn't important because there's no rush for it. We can take as long as we want. We can be in pain for as long as we want and be adamant we don't want to heal. At some point we'll be like, okay, I've done this enough times. All right. I want to now grow. I don't want these tough lives. So, from that point of view, if you think there's no time limit for this, there's just love when you get there. It puts a different perspective on things. The other thing you want to think about, and this is really interesting, when I first got my head around this, when I would watch the news, and let's say, I had, there's this man who, I don't know, abused his wife, and from the human perspective and the soul perspective, it is often the the polar opposite. So from the human perspective, I think, wow, what a horrible guy. Look what he did to his wife or children. Or from the soul perspective, I think, wow, what a fascinating contract. I wonder what they were both learning. I wonder why they set that up, what they wanted to learn as a result of this experience. So, I mean, looking
Hitler
at
comes to mind there.
Well, yes, even look at Gaza, what's happening there right now, on a human perspective, there's a genocide going on. It's hard, and then you want to think on not just the individual, but even the collective, the people of Palestine, the people of Israel, what has been planned. There's a book called something like the 20 leaders, or I can get you the name. I've got it downstairs somewhere. And it's a channeled work. And they take these leaders, Hitler's one of them, Gandhi's one of them, and they look at what they did, what their purpose was. So you think, was Hitler this terrible young soul who just went out of control and, millions died as a result of it? Or, often you want to see what was the result of what happened. The result of what happened is we got the Geneva Convention. The result is there was an outpouring of compassion. the result is the world got together to create some agreements on what is and isn't acceptable. So, it depends on what level you're looking at it from. From the human level, he was an awful man. From a different level, you can say, actually, he was quite an advanced soul. And there was a collective agreement with all of these souls that were involved, and so there's a collective learning, but there's also individual learnings within that. So it really goes deep.
I think he was a little mad as well. He was a little crazy.
If you try to understand it, you'll go crazy. It's almost like we get snippets of it. It's just too much for the human mind to comprehend. It really is.
Barbara, you have a question. Thank you for being so patient, waiting.
I have a few here. So I'm a medium, and when I've brought a soul forth, I haven't had anyone say that they were still hanging around. Okay. They don't. Why is that? Because from what you're saying, it's like a lot of them just are going to hang around for a little bit.
I think there are certain people drawn to work with certain energies. Now, the ones that hang around, they're often troubled souls. So they're going to have a very different vibration. So, for example, let's say a twin is a really good example. So, twins are born, or even, someone miscarriages or something. Often the soul of that baby can attach to the other child or the next baby that's born. Yeah. So this can be quite a common occurrence. So the level of consciousness of the souls that haven't moved on is the human level of consciousness. And when we do, you can call it spirit release, where we send the soul back into the light. Some people say, oh, I don't want to let go of my mother. She's still with me. Oh, I didn't realize. I'm not ready to let her go yet. Okay, when you are ready to let her go, we can do that. So at some point, they'll be ready, because if energy is still with you, it basically takes your energy. You can get more tired. You can pick up some of the, if mum had unresolved anger, it will make your anger a bit stronger than it would be otherwise, etc. So I always say to people, look, if you let them go and go to the light, they'll go through that process of lightening, releasing their stuff. And then when you call them back, which you still can, because the love is still there, then they're coming back with a very different level of consciousness. Yeah. So you're not generally, if you're, which you obviously are, if you're making the intention to tune into wisdom, you're not going to be tuning into these sorts of energies.
So if I am getting wisdom from somebody, if I'm doing a trance, message, it's not the ones that are hanging around. It's somebody else.
They've still got their human consciousness there. They haven't gone and seen the big picture, if you like. So that's why with all of the energy work, like trance work, the intention is so important. It's like, this is the kind of energy I want to bring in and speak to and get information from. Because sometimes they can be a bit sneaky. If you haven't got a really clear intention what you're doing, other energies can come in and masquerade as, sort of wise souls.
Yeah. Okay. So, and if they come back, after they pass, if they've got a lot of anger or something, and they sort of go through like a car wash to remove all the hate kind of thing just before they stay. Now, if they're only going to give a certain percentage, let's say they're going to give 20% of their energy before they reincarnate, what happens to the rest of the energy? Is that going on another plane, if it's like, or is it staying there?
It's working. It's working. Just like this 20% is doing what it's doing. Sometimes they can reincarnate twice at the same time in different bodies. That's one example of what people call a twin flame. Many people don't realize that can be a twin flame when the same soul recognizes itself in two different bodies. There are other examples of twin flames, so let's not get caught up in that. But yeah, they can be on Earth at the same time, or they can be in different realms, different planets, different universes doing the work that they need to do for
Right. And
growth
souls can be in many places at once. It's not
at
like
the same time.
if you tell them he's protecting you, it doesn't mean that he's not up there, in the library.
Exactly.
Last question. The better your life is down here, if you don't have a lot of trauma and everything's been pretty good, does that mean you're pretty close to not having to come back because you don't have a lot of bad stuff to get rid of?
Brilliant question. I love that.
I asked that to Dr. Mark Pitzik, and he said that's a great question. So, but he didn't answer it. So tell me.
Let me answer it for you. Like all of these things, there isn't a one size fits all. Sometimes there's a soul that comes in and takes some. So when we go through the car wash, as you put it, let's say if I've got anger and sadness, as I go up and shed the layers of anger and sadness, it's almost like, imagine I have my personal shelf of jam jars. So I'll put my anger in the jam jar, close it. I'll put my sadness in the jam jar, close it, and I'll go up. When I want to be reincarnated again, as I come back to my shelf, I think, oh, look, I haven't dealt with my anger yet. I haven't dealt with it. So I'll take these jam jars with me and reincarnate so I can clear them. Yeah. Now, so if I'm coming and I have a really nice life, good life, etc., like you're saying, it could be a number of things. One of the things it could be is I've had a series of really tough lives and I haven't been able to get through it. I've committed suicide, or I just haven't achieved what I came to achieve. So sometimes the soul comes in and has a rest life, a really nice, loving, nurturing life where they can kind of recharge. So it could be that. Also, it could be that I've cleared a lot of stuff and I'm coming. And actually, the reason I haven't got lots of stuff right now is because part of my mission is I'm going to be doing something. I'm going to be helping others. It's often to do with more of a collective, what's it called? A collective, helping people, either individuals or on a collective. Yeah.
Like being a medium, helping.
Yeah, like medium, exactly. And yeah, it could mean that it doesn't necessarily mean that all the jam jars are gone, but it could mean that, or, many of them.
All right. Good to know. Thank you very much.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara, for those questions. Wissam, do you have time for one more question? I think Kathy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hand up. Kathy, go ahead.
Wissam, I'm so curious about something. In a shared death experience, on a non-linear, what's really happening there?
On a shared death
In
experience.
a shared death experience,
What do you mean by shared?
you experience something as someone is passing. I had this with my mom.
Oh, I see.
And
Yes.
I went somewhere with her, and I have never understood, and maybe I'm not intended to, but the experience was so powerful that I guess because you're a resource in a non-linear kind of communication, if you would please, what possibly is happening there? Is it this blend? It was amazing, and
Yeah.
it was so overwhelmingly love and compassion and darkness. It was an amazing experience for me. I wrote a book. It took me 4 years to write a book about my caregiving experience, and I could never put words to that, and I stopped writing. And then I realized it's for me.
Beautiful. Isn't it
And,
just
and yet I'm
beautiful?
still trying to understand it.
Yeah. So what you're tuning into is that place, that love, that compassion. And as I said, when people pass, often beings of light come to receive them. Sometimes it's their whole, extended family coming, or, sometimes it's one being, but often it could be a number of beings coming in. And that's the energy that is held. It's like this absolute love, and people are like, wow, I certainly don't want to stay here. Even if I've had a good life, it's like, wow, look at that. That feels incredible. That's home. So yeah, that's kind of, if you like, the portal opening to that place. So whether you're feeling that place directly, or feeling the beings and the energy that they're coming with to take the soul away, I couldn't tell you for sure, but you're certainly tuning into the experience that I'm mentioning when people leave their bodies in past lives. It's so hard to explain it in terms of, because we don't have words for it.
Exactly. There are no words there. And I was extremely unsettled, but it didn't feel scary.
Exactly. It's
That
not
I
scary.
was saying to my husband, the thing I kept saying is, I have to go out. It was 2 a.m. I have to go out and look at the sky. I don't know why, but I need to place myself in the sky. And I kept saying that because it was just nothing like the human experience.
Yeah. It's really something. If you're ever able to be with someone who passes and not be fully caught in the emotions of,
Yes.
the letting go,
Yeah.
and you can be present. I mean, you just read the material on this. So many people talk about these types of feelings and experiences. It's very, very, it is common.
Yeah.
So this is where, when a zillion people, unrelated, are all reporting the same thing. If one person said it, you'd think, oh, maybe they're a bit making it up. But when
Yeah.
that many people are reporting the same thing and they have no connection to each other and they all believe in different things, you start thinking, well, there must be something in this,
Yeah.
and yeah, absolutely,
It's
yeah.
interesting that you said that, because I was so exhausted that the last 2 days, the last 48 hours, I finally just said, my spirit's going to carry me. I can't humanly be Kathy, connected to my mom. I'm going to let spirit guide. And I think that's frankly why it happened the way it did.
Yeah.
Because I had to just release the human experience. Yeah. Oh, thank you
When my
for.
father passed, even with all the knowledge I have, I was devastated, and I
Oh,
was with
yeah.
him. And as he passed, I was crying,
Mm.
and I was just kissing his body, even though I knew. And there he was laughing at me. I'm
Yeah.
like, Dad, I know you're laughing at me, but this is my human trying to
This is
let go here.
me.
Yeah.
Come on already.
I get you're okay, but still,
Yeah.
I have to go through this to release. But it
Yeah.
was lovely, just seeing him laughing at me, was, it's just so reassuring. Yeah, to that part. So yeah, when we have these experiences, even though, even if, I have this belief, even with that belief, we still have to go through our humanness. We still
Right.
have to release this, with
Right.
all the spiritual knowledge. You can't, well, you can, but you don't want to bypass the human experience, and because ultimately that's why we're here, to have
Which
this
is a
human experience.
perfect round circle to the way you started in conversation about releasing through tears.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a perfect
yeah,
circle. Now,
absolutely.
thank you so much for
You're really
helping
welcome.
me place understanding in my heart as to what that was about.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Wissam, for being with us this evening. It's been amazing. And I think you'll have to come back and talk to us about Twin Peaks.
The Twin Peaks. Sure, anytime. Just let me know, Linda. It'd be my pleasure.
Thank you so much for this evening. And thank you all for joining us.
if anyone wants the YouTube channel, what should I do?
Send it to me and I will put it onto the Advancing Awareness site.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll send you my website
Yes, please
and
do.
the YouTube link so people can
Excellent.
find any of the trainings or any of the videos there.
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
All right.